To those around Robert Berdella, he appeared to be a helpful individual who was active in his community, and who would often help people who struggled with homelessness in Kansas City. But underneath the facade was a deranged sadistic butcher who delighted in the anguish of his victims.
Me being the neighbor next door, who reached a point in his life where he could do monstrous acts. That's not the same thing as being a monster.
Berdella's first victim was 19-year-old Jerry Howell. Howell's father and Berdella were both shop owners at a flea market and operated a booth across from Berdella. Berdella befriended and earned the young man's trust, and on the week of July 5, 1984, Berdella volunteered to drive Howell to a dance contest. Instead of taking Howell to the dance contest, Berdella got the young man drunk with alcohol and pills. Howell passed out and was driven to Berdella's home, where Berdella injected him with a tranquilizer and tied him to his bed. For the next 28 hours, he continued to drug, experiment, and violated Howell. The young man begged for his life in between unconsciousness, until he choked on his vomit and died. He then dragged Howell's body to his basement, strung his body upside down over a large pot, and drained his body of blood. 24 hours later, after the body was drained, he took a chainsaw and dismembered Howell. He then wrapped the remains in newspaper, threw them in garbage bags, and placed them outside, where they were taken away with the garbage. Over the next few years, Berdella would kill at least 5 more men, and with each victim, his savagery would increase. His victims were held captive spanning anywhere between 1 day to 6 weeks. He did terrible things to these poor men, such as injecting drain cleaner into their throats to prevent them from screaming, rubbing chemical cleaner into their eyes, sticking hypodermic needles under their fingernails, neck, and private areas, experimenting with electric shock, and more that would not be suitable for YouTube. On March 29, 1988, Berdella lured 22-year-old Christopher Bryson to his home. Berdella took an iron pipe and hit Bryson in the head, rendering him unconscious. He then tied the young man to his bed, experimented on him, and rubbed ammonia into his eyes. After 4 days of captivity, Berdella had become more trusting of Bryson, and Bryson convinced Berdella to allow his hand restraints to be tied in front of him instead of above him. Berdella left for work. Bryson was able to reach some matches that Berdella had accidentally left close to the bed, which Bryson used to burn through the restraints and escaped out of a second-story window. Bryson broke his foot on the landing, but the bruised young man wearing nothing but a dog collar managed to get help from a meter maid nearby. Once police arrived, Bryson explained to them that he had been held captive and repeatedly assaulted, drugged, and injected with drain cleaner into his throat. Berdella was arrested the same day and his home was searched. Officers found more than 300 pictures of his victims. The pictures showed his victims being experimented on, and their bodies after they were killed. He told investigators that he kept the pictures as trophies. They also found a human skull in a second-floor closet, a human vertebrae in the hallway, a partially decomposed head in his backyard, several human teeth, a chainsaw stained with blood, pubic hair, and flesh, and other tools that were used to torture his victims. The officers also uncovered the wallets of his victims, along with a detailed log that Berdella kept that described the experiments, his victims' reactions, and the murders of each of his victims.
I kept sheets of paper that I had made some notations on. This is between the mattress and springs on my bed. This is one of those packages containing numerous photographs and what became to be known as meticulous, methodical diaries. Those pieces of paper in there are these meticulous diaries.
These are the pictures of the more than 200 photographs, some of them of young men, sexual partners, and these are in some ways, and these that we see here are the sheets of paper upon which you made notes.
Right.
It was discovered that Berdella had a history of taking advantage of young transient men, and was known around the transient community as someone who should be avoided. He had previously been under surveillance for the disappearance of Jerry Howell and James Ferris, both victims of Berdella, but after his attorney threatened to sue the Kansas City Police Department, the surveillance stopped.
It seems to me that you're suggesting that had the police done their job, had they followed the leads, had they really been on your case prior to April 2nd, 1988, they would have caught you, and some of this suffering could have been prevented.
Maybe not caught me. Scared me off, maybe. prevented things from happening after Howell? Definitely.
In a way, do you wish they had?
Yes.
Berdella pled guilty to first and second-degree murders and confessed fully in exchange for the state not seeking death. He claimed that the 1965 movie called The Collector greatly influenced and became the motivation for his murders. He was sentenced to life in prison for the murder of his 6 victims. He died of a heart attack in October 1992 in prison. Because Berdella dismembered and disposed of his victims in the garbage, their bodies were never found. Thanks for all of the support, and remember, stay safe.